An 81-year-old screen legend stepped to a microphone on a hot May morning, convinced that his gravel-voiced warning would go down in political history. Instead, Robert De Niro's courthouse broadside detonated in his own face. Reporters had barely switched on their recorders outside Manhattan Criminal Court on May 28, 2024 before a car alarm wailed. MAGA hecklers drowned him out, and cable news cut away within minutes. Donald Trump wants to destroy the whole world, De Niro growled, gesturing at the looming facade behind him, but his words were spliced with jeers and sirens that made the moment look less like statesmanship and more like sidewalk theater. By noon, the clip was already looping on timelines, and one of the internet's biggest blowtorches aimed directly at it. On his marathon podcast, Joe Rogan laughed that actors need to shut the F up about politics and let people enjoy the movie, before riffing that De Niro was shadowboxing with his own ego and torching a half-century legacy in real time. Rogan framed the spectacle as generational whiplash, the icy menace of Taxi Driver reduced to an angry Facebook uncle shouting at passing cars. Fans clipped the rant into 60-second bursts that rocketed through TikTok, each edit ending on Rogan's weary punchline. "Nobody buys a ticket for your opinions, Bobby." If Rogan's critique felt like a liver shot, primetime TV answered with a knockout punch. That night, Fox News host Jesse Watters opened with De Niro's courthouse footage and declared, "Biden just sent a wannabe mob boss to intimidate the jury." Here he played the actor's mask-clad scowl in slow motion, plastered a headline reading "Raging Bullish on Biden" across the screen, and mocked the idea that undecided voters would ever consult Hollywood for moral guidance. Street interviews followed, New York commuters giggling at the notion that De Niro could sway them, and Watters capped the segment with the line, "Zero people convinced, millions entertained." Somewhere between Rogan's studio and Watters' desk, the day's narrative solidified. The Democrats' shiny surrogate had become an unwitting meme. But why had an Oscar-winning icon, famous for guarding his privacy, gambled his reputation on courthouse theatrics in the first place? The answer reaches back over a decade, a slow-burn feud that finally erupted in full public glare. The first sparks flew in 2011 when De Niro joked that America wasn't ready for a white first lady at a Democratic fundraiser, prompting an angry Trump tweetstorm. By 2016, he was calling Trump a mutt and vowing to punch him in the face. Each award show season brought a fresh volley, a Broadway Tony speech filled with bleeped profanity, a Ken red carpet interview labeling Trump a Philistine. The insults escalated in tandem with cable news coverage, embedding De Niro in the culture war crossfire, exactly the terrain Rogan and Watters patrol for viral moments. The courthouse stunt was merely the loudest beat in a long drum solo of disdain, and critics argued it finally tipped from principled outrage into self-parody. Off-camera pressures were closing in, too. In November 2023, a Manhattan jury found De Niro's Canal Productions liable for gender discrimination against his former assistant, awarding her $1.3 million in damages, headlines that nudged the actor's temperament into fresh scrutiny. And while the courthouse mic still cooled, legal blogs revived the saga of the star's bitter divorce from Grace Hightower, which has drained legal fees since 2018 and once prompted his lawyer to say De Niro was being forced to work at an age when most peers retire. All of it fed a perception that the actor who played Vito Corleone's heir was now staring down his own mob of financial and reputational headaches. Rogan hinted as much, joking that a man who spent a career pretending to be broke guys with nothing to lose is now a rich guy with everything to lose. Watters, never one to miss a punchline, suggested De Niro's real audience wasn't undecided voters, but Hollywood bosses calculating insurance premiums on an octogenarian lead. As the day ended, TikTok stitched Rogan's laughter over De Niro's red-faced courthouse retorts, a mashup titled Taxi Driver Needs a Driver. By midnight, it had cleared 3 million loops. The meme's caption asked, "Did Bobby just audition for irrelevance?" The question lingered in comment sections long after the press trucks rolled away. But the loudest fallout wasn't a meme or a monologue. It was an industry whisper spreading through studio boardrooms. If celebrity activism no longer moves polls, and might even backfire, What does that mean for movie marketing, for talk show bookings, for the entire ecosystem that merges fame with politics? That uncertainty, more than any courthouse soundbite, threatened to redraw the map of De Niro's late career roles. And that's where the story pivots, from one chaotic press conference to the deeper cracks snaking through the star's personal life, his finances, and his carefully curated mystique. Those cracks, barely visible beneath decades of critical acclaim, could turn a single bad news cycle into a lasting scar. Back in 2018, the first cracks showed on live television when De Niro strode onto the Tony Awards stage, pumped both fists, and blurted an uncensored expletive aimed at Trump. The crowd roared, social media lit up, and by sunrise the clip had stitched itself into every late-night monologue. What looked like a triumphant rally cry at Radio City Music Hall also marked a turning point. The moment De Niro's political firebrand persona threatened to eclipse the meticulous character work that had earned him 2 Oscars. In hindsight, that outburst feels less like a spike on the timeline and more like the opening drumroll of a performance he's been unable or unwilling to end. Fast forward to 2025, and the cultural tide has shifted. A Morning Consult survey shows public trust in celebrity political endorsements has plunged below 10%, and ratings for star-studded award shows have slumped to historic lows. Studio publicists whisper that even a cameo on a talk show can spark backlash if the conversation veers into politics. Against that backdrop, De Niro's courthouse might grab landed not as a bold stand but as déjà vu, proof, critics say, that Hollywood's Activism script is recycling the same lines while the audience quietly slips out of the theater. De Niro's public fury makes more sense when you trace the timeline that fans rarely see: lawsuits, late-life fatherhood, and a steady drip of headlines chipping away at the marble statue of greatest actor of his generation. In November 2023, the gender discrimination verdict against Canal Productions didn't just cost $1.3 million. It reopened talk about a workplace culture that his former assistant described as degrading and chaotic. Days later, industry newsletters speculated that insurance underwriters were eyeing any De Niro-led project twice, raising budgets by 7-figure sums to cover potential PR flare-ups. Meanwhile, the divorce that began in 2018 kept spinning fresh drama. Court filings revealed credit card caps, Manhattan penthouse mortgages, and arguments over whether a $375,000 monthly spending limit met the definition of basic support. Business Insider summarized the judge's early 2021 rebuke. De Niro might have $500 million on paper, but cash flow was tight enough that he could be forced to keep acting into his 80s to bankroll legal fees and taxes. Then, as tabloids gawked at spreadsheets, De Niro quietly welcomed a 7th child. In April 2023, partner Tiffany Chin gave birth to Gia Virginia Chin De Niro, news the actor confirmed on national television a month later. Most fans reacted with warm surprise. Some observers questioned whether late-life parenthood added fresh financial pressure. De Niro brushed off the chatter, but when an interviewer asked in early 2025 if he planned to slow down, he snapped, "I work because I want to, not because I have to." The clip circulated side by side with his courthouse rant, feeding an online narrative that the two answers might not align. That narrative hardened after Vanity Fair published excerpts of De Niro's Biden campaign speech in which he called Trump a coward, buffoon, and tyrant who absolutely belongs in jail. Supporters cheered, but critics spun it as further proof that celebrity screeds talk mainly to pre-converted audiences. Pollsters running quick surveys the next week found no measurable shift toward Biden among swing voters, though De Niro's negative Q-score jumped 10 points in conservative-leaning demos. Social media analytics told the same story. New York Post footage of De Niro shouting, "You're a effing idiot," at Trump supporters drew millions of views, but the engagement skewed toward mockery. The hashtags #PunchyBobby and #ActorActivist trended for 48 hours, crowded with memes that re-edit Raging Bull fight scenes, so the aging Jake LaMotta lunges not at Sugar Ray, but at a sea of red MAGA caps. And yet, amid the jeers, one question kept resurfacing. Is the era of celebrity activism itself dying? On his podcast, Rogan argued that audiences now prize authenticity over lecture. He contrasted comedians, paid to pursue truth at personal risk, with actors, paid to pretend. Waters echoed the point from the opposite ideological flank, branding De Niro a coastal patriarch bullying working people from behind velvet ropes. When two media giants who rarely agree start hitting the same note, Hollywood notices. Studio insiders leaked whispers that upcoming prestige projects, one a gangster epic, another a limited series biopic, were quietly recalculating publicity plans. In one case, an insurance clause reportedly stipulates that De Niro refrain from unapproved political events during principal photography. The clause, unthinkable a decade ago, hints at a new calculus. Box office risk isn't just about stunts and stunts gone wrong, it's about viral optics. For De Niro, the stakes are personal and professional. One side of the ledger shows a two-time Oscar winner with a resumed feud can rival. The other lists rising legal costs, a high-profile feud with a former president, and a public patience for celebrity sermons that looks thinner by the week. Every fresh outburst invites the same cynical hashtag Rage Against the Legacy. But legacies aren't written by trending topics alone. De Niro has weathered box office bombs, health scares, and decades of tabloid bait. Friends say he still commands total focus on set, that he lights up when talking about future roles, that fatherhood at 80+ puts a grin on his face you'd notice from space. Maybe the courthouse scene was an unforced error. Maybe it was a final act flourish in a life spent railing against bullies, real or imagined. Only time, and the next viral clip, will tell which interpretation survives. For viewers, the episode offers an odd kind of freedom. You can admire the art without importing the artist's politics, laugh at a meme without dismissing a film career, or hit the comment section with your own judgment. So ask yourself, did De Niro's fiery stand shake your convictions, or simply confirm them? Does a brilliant performance lose its shine when the curtain drops and the man behind it won't stop shouting? One thing is certain. The next time an aging star steps to a mic with righteous fury, PR teams everywhere will remember how Bobby's gamble played out in real time. Car alarms, counterpunches, trending hashtags, and all. If silence really is golden, will Robert De Niro finally treasure it, or spend one more news cycle turning his spotlight into a bonfire? The choice, like the legacy, is his, and the audience is still watching.